Well, welcome back everybody to the channel and also to the very first video of the year. Now our boy Armada Galvatron here actually won a poll that we put up, and for the very first guy that we're looking at this year, he's kind of an interesting one, although we pretty much know all his tricks if you had the Armada version of Megatron. Now last time we looked at this mold, we did so in comparison to the original 2003, in which he had all the mini-cons and all the ports plugged up, and you just saw the absolute insanity of the original Megatron figure. Well, for Galvatron, I wanted to come out of the gate showing you just the absolute nuttiness that the new mold can do if you wanted to weapon him up. And as we can see here, he's rocking a little bit of Vok weaponry. And on this side, we see with those two guns. And then over here on this side, that he's basically rocking the guns he stole off of Galaxy Shuttle. However, our victory friend should not feel too bad, as even Generation 1 Blitzwing had one of his weapons utilized here on our Armada Galvatron. And then we can see Galvatron here is rocking that purple blast effect, loving how that looks. So one little feature that I kind of dig on this is this little bit right here, because like we discussed in Megatron's video, with this little piece right here not being able to go any farther forward, I thought, well, okay, what if it's actually some sort of like back-mounted turret? That looks pretty awesome. But you know, I love to show you guys how figures can look if you just wanted to go absolutely overkill with everything. But maybe it does something for you. I mean, if you want to have your Galvatron having absolutely insane amounts of firepower, this is an option that is available to you. Oh, and here's our boy looking so much better cleaned up. I mean, just look at the crisp amount of details on this guy. I love just all the little different hits and everything. And I mean, this is a pretty slick design. I've always liked it since the days it was Megatron, which we will do a comparison here in a moment. But there's something that I don't know if you guys were aware of in regards to Armada Galvatron, is that once he took on this color scheme, do you know that he did not transform into his tank mode for the rest of the series? From the moment he became Galvatron, you never see him in his tank mode. So the only way that we've ever seen Armada Galvatron in this alt mode with this color scheme is due to the fact that his original figure back in 2003 was packaged in alt mode. And in addition to that, also it had the box art in the back that depicted him in vehicle mode. And it was just kind of something that shocked me, because even whenever he was Megatron, he rarely transformed into his tank mode. I mean, it was just something that you didn't see all that much. However, as you've seen with these guys, basically Galvatron is one-to-one for Megatron. And I think it just boils down to, what do you like a little bit better? Do you like this guy in his green, gray, and black versus Galvatron in his white, purple, and gold and silver highlights? And I think personally myself, I do like the Galvatron color scheme a little bit better. Yeah, it just does enough. Well, I would be a little bit remiss if I did not show you alongside his Nemesis, which is kind of funny because in the Armada cartoon, I think it was like until the second to last episode, Optimus basically carried this color scheme all the way through until he got his like blackish blue and red repaint. So even though we never see these guys together in vehicle mode like this with these color schemes specifically, I think that if you wanted to put them on the shelf together, I don't think they look bad. I mean, they definitely have that legacy aesthetic, but it doesn't just outright deny its Armada origin. So a little side note, if you guys remember whenever we did the review of this guy, we reviewed him and Megatron at the same time. However, there was something that I wanted to show you about this trailer that I neglected to mention in Optimus's review, and that's the fact that if you can see back here, it does have this port right here, which, like we've addressed before, with this Optimus, it is backwards compatible with the original Overload mold. And even though this is the Sentinel Maximus version of Overload, they all have this little hitch right here. And the point of bringing that up is it actually will go ahead and plug into that port rather securely. And I will get back to Galvatron. I know this is his video, but I still want to go ahead and put this in there. That if you do have a Jetfire, an original Jetfire, that's the reason the original Overload figure existed, was so that Optimus could haul around his second in command in his vehicle mode. But this just kind of further emphasizes the point that I was just making about the distance of time between the two halves of what we got going on here, and the fact that they're still able to work together. I don't know why that blows my mind as much as it does, but you know what? I'm cool with it either way.
Do you mind? I don't have time for this. Now let's just get back to the business at hand, shall we?
So here we can see both Megs and Galva rocking their blast effects that, in my personal opinion, I think that these blast effects are the best one to use with the specific figure that is currently using them. But I am so digging the fact of how sick these guys' robot modes are. So like I said, in the top 10 United figures, I think the Energon Megatron is a favorite form of the Unicron Trilogy Megatron. However, seeing how sick these molds are, it's making me kind of reconsider that position because of just how, I don't know, there's something imposing and something that is just really cool about this mold. And for either Megatron or Galvatron, the guys are just absolutely slaying it. Now, because this figure is taken from the Megatron that was part of the Legacy Evolution line, where they wanted you to reintegrate their weapons in different forms, he does retain that feature. So while I was never the biggest fan of it, I do like the fact that if it does strike your fancy, it still is an option on this guy. Now, one thing that he doesn't retain is the horned attack mode. And what do I mean by that? Well, whenever we looked at this guy, we showed you that you could detach Megatron's horns and move them downward in more of a horizontal position to recreate that scene where he was basically capturing Hot Shot with them and throwing him around. And don't get me wrong, the pieces and the parts are still here on Galvatron, but instead of allowing them to be movable, they glued them into the sides of Galvatron's head. The sole reason being that because of all the scumbags that were stealing heads off of figures, they didn't want the horns to go missing. I'm like, if they're gonna steal the head, they're gonna steal not just the horns. So the fact is that at the factory, they just glued all of them because they had no way of knowing which ones were going to be allocated for online sales versus in-store. And I probably could go ahead and try to pull it out myself, but I'm worried about messing up the horns themselves. And it's kind of an ironic thing because in like the last episodes of Armada, he uses that horn attack again on Optimus. Maybe that's just one minor thing against this Galvatron that's not really even his fault, to be honest. I hate people that are just turds like that. They ruin the fun for all of us eventually. It's their fault. Now, where would we be if I didn't show you how he stacked up to Optimus in Optimus's base robot mode? And so when these guys are on the shelf together, it just looks awesome. So pretty much it's just been kind of a home run with a lot, if not all, of the Armada figures that they've done. Now, in Armada, the Decepticons eventually did gain possession of the Skyboom Shield, the Star Saber, and the Requiem Blaster. And at the end of the series, we see Galvatron leap into battle after returning to Cybertron, wielding not only at first the Skyboom Shield and the Star Saber, basically cutting up Autobot ships like they were pieces of steak, before eventually switching over to the Requiem Blaster and basically just killing fools right there on the spot. And as you can see here, this version of Galvatron is wielding the original Minicon weapons, and I think that he looks pretty sick with them. Now, I kind of hope that one day we get updated versions of these weapons that are maybe a little bit more solid, because, again, these figures that he's holding are 20-something years old, and I really would like to see an updated version, not like what we got with Starscream, but, you know, like actual Minicons that could make a legit sick-looking sword, shield, and of course the gun. So no matter how you feel about the tank bit flipping around for his ultra fire mode, I do have to kind of admit, I think that from just a strategic standpoint, that would be a pretty effective weapon, even if it does look pretty silly on this guy. However, that's just my take on it. If you feel different, I understand. However, this is just stage 1 of his ultimate assault mode configuration. However, to get us there, we need to detach these particular pieces off of the bigger Tidal Wave figure. And I have to say that he looks pretty sick. I do dig how the colors tie in a little bit better with Galvatron, especially where the feet are concerned, because basically they are the same color. On Megatron, because his feet are kind of a lighter gray, you can see how they would clash with the leg extensions. The other thing that I totally dig about this is that they found a much more secure way to make it look like the armor was attached to his arms without actually having to do that. Because actually they plug in up here on the sides of the tank treads, and then basically you just position the arms to make them look like they are still attached there. Which I'm like, you know what, that's a cheeky way of doing it, but if it gives it much more structural integrity and support, I'm all about it. Plus, I love the giant wing pack on the back, and it likewise has a peg that plugs into this part of the tank tread, over here, and then of course the very center post on the back. And this powered up version of Galvatron has always been a favorite of mine. And as you can see here, here's Megatron combined with the American version of Tidal Wave. And as you would obviously not be surprised to see how this one, the modern one, feels light years beyond the original 2003 guy. But I just had to show you guys what he looked like in comparison to the OG guy, so that we can at least kind of appreciate how awesome this newer iteration is. But you know that Optimus is not going to let Galvatron maintain his edge. I mean, Optimus does love to bring along his mobile pair of pants and his dual cannon buddy, which I don't know if even with the Tidal Wave armor upgrade, if it puts Galvatron up there on that level. Unless you go by the show's lore, in which they did show him to be pretty powerful with it, so who really knows. But you know what I really want to see is I want to see a new version of Jetfire that can combine with Commander Class Optimus. However, if they end up doing that, you know that we'll want this whole setup as well with the dual cannons of Overload. So it'll be kind of interesting to see if they go ahead and do that with Ultra Jet Convoy or not. But anyway, as far as Galvatron's concerned, I think that if you guys could score him at a good price, I think he'd be worth it. Like I said, if you have the Legacy Megatron, you basically know what you're getting here. So with everything this guy is capable of doing and how sick his aesthetics are, yeah, I'm definitely not regretting getting Galvatron, because I actually scored this guy on Walmart around Christmas time. Yet with that being the case, everyone, that's all I really have to tell you about our Legacy United Armada Universe Galvatron. And until next time, everybody, we'll see you in another review.
From now on, would you keep your mindless thoughts to yourself? Right now, all I can think about is the comrade we lost. Sure, he challenged my authority in a failed coup attempt, and even though Starscream was a traitor, he never lost sight of his oath to the Decepticons. He was a true soldier, unlike most of you! Well, maybe Starscream was right. Maybe we should join forces with the Autobots. But once Unicron is taken care of, then I'll destroy you, Optimus Prime!